Hi everyone, this is my response to Serene Madness's video. 2 knives and a tool that you'd take with you in a survival situation if you could only have the 3 items. So the first one on the list that he said about was a fixed blade. This would be my one. This is the Cold Steel GI Tanto, and I modified this by putting homemade micarta scales on it. So that would be pretty tough. You can use this to baton and pretty much prepare any fire wood at all. Also, it'd be pretty good at other things. Got a built-in guard there so your hand doesn't slip up onto the blade. Lanyard hole in the back. Finger choil at the front so you can do pretty, small tasks with it. Not as comfortable as a Mora because of that guard sticking into the back of your palm, so I wouldn't recommend, like a long-term job using that or anything, just short things. But that would be it. Next up on the list was a second knife that you take with you. This is where it gets a little bit complicated. As we can see there, I'd probably take this because I don't have any full-size Spyderco. This is a sister company from Spyderco. It's called a Bird. Almost the same cutout. If you cover that part up there, it looks just like a Spyderco. So the Bird Caracara 2, I think it's a copy of the Spyderco Endora. This has a shaving sharp edge on it and is 8CR13 MOV. I stropped this one recently, so it definitely is shaving sharp and has a slight mirror polish on the edge. So that would be a pretty good one. So it's back locks, it's pretty strong. It's not as strong as like a Cold Steel triad lock or anything, but you can open and close it with one hand. It's got a relatively decent tip on there, although you wouldn't use a knife for prying or anything like that. Again, you can use this for other things. No pocket clip on mine because I believe it bent, but I'd probably prefer one with a clip. And the second part was obviously a folder. I was thinking maybe if you mean, if you're along the lines of anything sharp that folds, and this doesn't count as the third tool, if you replace that knife with a silky pocket boy, which is a folding saw, Japanese laser cut blade, you can't sharpen them, you just have to replace the entire blade once they get blunt. Multiple positions, so if you're cutting a piece of wood on the forest floor or something like that, and you need to elevate your hand so it's not, you're not rubbing your knuckles against something, the floor or anything else, you can put it into the second position, so you can use it like that, or then use it in the standard position, which is just like this. Extremely sharp. I have actually slipped off a piece of wood as I was cutting it, and I think it was my thumb. It was probably like just about there. A few of the teeth here stabbed all the way in. So yeah, didn't feel it at the time because it was so sharp, but it definitely stung a bit afterwards and took a while to heal. Both of these, the fixed blade comes with its own sheath, which you don't have to take your belt off for, you can just undo it. There's a fastener and velcro behind that. Also, this has its own sort of carry case as well to keep it out of the wet or anything, stop it starting to rust or getting any dirt on it anywhere. Sort of has this weird hanging loop, so you can put that on a tree branch or something. So if that counts as a folding knife or sharpened folding tool without being the third tool, then I would carry that instead of this. But it also depends if it's like a survival forest situation or if it's like an urban environment sort of thing. So I can do most things with this. if I cut down small trees with that, and this is how big it goes. So if you're thinking about like this being the tree, you know, you can cut down a piece just a bit bigger than your fist. So that's a pretty decent sized tree. You can build shelter with that, or just use it for the firewood. Always get confused as what way that goes back in the sheath. There you go. So if I can cut down with that in a survival situation in like a UK forest or something like that, then I can obviously split the wood in half and make kindling with the knife. If I can do that with the knife, then that means I can start a fire and build shelter. So if that's the case, I need something to make the fire. And as you said, lighters and matches weren't on the list. You couldn't use those as your tool, or a torch as well. Can't use a torch / flashlight. So I pick a fire steel as my third item as the tool. This is a pretty decently sized one. It's like 12mm thick, I believe, and probably about 6 inches long. It does come with this piece of, I think it's like a metal saw from like a hacksaw blade, and ball changers to keep them together. But if that wasn't allowed under the rules, I'd just have this as it is anyway. Probably put a shoestring through it or something like that just to keep it with me, because I don't actually need this part in the end. It does make it extremely useful, just because you can do that. You can also use the back of the saw blade here. Everyone thinks about the front of the saw, but the back part here can be used to scrape the fire steel. It also can be used to scrape bark off of branches and twigs and things like that. So it can help you make arrows and you know, pretty much anything you'd need to take bark off to make. Also, this can be used to scrape the fire steel. You can also use the you can either use the spine here, or you can use this back edge of the blade, this wedge here. Now when you get one of these, be careful, because this is actually sharp enough to cut you. I know it looks like just the cutting edges here and here on the secondary tanto sort of edge to the tip, but from there to there, it's actually sharper than a butter knife, I'd say that. So you can actually cut yourself on that, so be careful. So if I can cut down trees, make shelter, firewood, tinder, then I definitely need a fire steel, and that's going to last, you know, thousands of uses, rather than a lighter or matches that can get wet and not work. That will still work when wet. And if you find some birch bark or something like that around, or if it is a real survival situation, you just throw some petrol on there or whatever you can at the time. That'll help you survive. Now if it is an urban environment sort of situation, and I'd probably change this up a bit. I might change the saw for the folding knife, and I might change this for a different tool, a Leatherman. If that is the case, you've got pliers on there, you've got a wire cutter. If you're using a rubber glove or something, you'll be able to cut through electrical wire, live wire with it. Replaceable blades here. This also has a small saw as well, which is really bloody effective actually. If I'm ever going out to find like a small piece of wood or anything like that, I normally take this with me. If I'm cutting down a small tree, I'll take that. So yeah, there's all sorts of tools. This is actually the UK sort of legal / friendly carry one, because this is the Leatherman rebar knifeless version, so it doesn't have a knife blade on it at all. It's got a metal file, that's actually really sharp as well. You've got a 3D Phillips head screwdriver. All these tools are lockable as well, they all lock in place. So you've got a proper 3D screwdriver there, not one of those half ones that are really bad. You've got lanyard loop, can opener, bottle opener, multiple flathead screwdrivers, and this one actually, I think this is the difference between the knifeless and the other one, has folding scissors on it. And if you're like me and you carry a Victorinox Classic, I believe it's called, you know that the scissors come in really handy. Small spring-loaded scissors like that really save the day most of the time without being threatening to everyone by like getting a knife out. You can also cut your nails with it or anything like that, because once they get in the way, you know, if you're in a survival situation, you wouldn't want to get you wouldn't want to have long nails or anything like that anyway. And you can also cut your hair with that or anything if it's like long-term stuff. I think that's about it. Yeah, any of those tools could be used to like get a splinter out or anything like that. If it is an urban survival situation, you'd obviously have loads of screws and things around that you might have to undo. Let's say that there's a locked door or something like that, and maybe you can get to the hinges or something. Might be able to just take the door off the hinges, you know, from that side instead of having to try and get through a lock or something. Or if there's like a padlock drawer, and it's got one of those like U-shaped pieces on the front that you put the padlock through, you could just undo the screws on instead. You know, so that could be pretty useful in an urban survival situation. I'd also pick the folding knife instead of the saw in that situation, because this one has a small saw which could be used for decent sized pieces of wood, actually, definitely big enough for firewood and kindling. This is easier to hide in a pocket if this was ever confiscated, because this hanging off a belt is pretty obvious. If you were to put that in a pocket or a bag or something, or you know, if you had boots or Wellingtons on, you may be even able to slip into that. You know, once again, depending on the survival situation, if it was like zombie apocalypse stuff, you're at some sort of quarantine / border area or something, you could, you know, definitely hide that easier. It really just depends. But that is it. So for the tools, we're going with either fire starter for urban and sort of forest situations, and for the cutting tool, folding tool, we're going for a full-size folder lockback or a lockback folding saw. And for the fixed blade, I think this size would be good at this thickness, just because it can be used for preparing wood and obviously other things as well. And it's really, really tough, that one. I think it's 1095 mid carbon steel or 1060, something like that. It might even be 1055. I'm not sure with cold steel stuff, because you know they've got like 3 main carbon steels that they use for machetes, fixed blades, and tomahawks. So yeah, thanks for watching. Hope I wasn't going on too much. I'll notice when I'm on camera I try and like hold my breath or something, so I can't hear it in the recording afterwards. So if I sound a little out of breath, it's because I'm trying to like say a lot of stuff before having to breathe and things. I just don't know why I do that, but I do. Thanks for watching, and hope you get well soon. Peace.